Hey, Christine Latrell Williams here with Strategies for Small Businesses. I am so excited. We are going to have an amazing guest today. Her name is Kay, and she is a good friend of mine that I've met through my entrepreneurial journey. No, that was not easy to say. And she is amazing working with people in their podcasts and getting them through certain different hurdles, I would say, and getting them prepped. Kay, I know a lot about you, and I would love for you to share more about you. And the key thing I want you to share when you get it out there is what inspired you to start working in podcasting?
Oh my goodness. First of all, Christina, thank you for having me on your show and your podcast. I'm super, super excited to be here. Now, to answer your question, honestly, it was a mixture of different things that happened by accident, right? And so I didn't ever have the intention to build a podcast agency, ever, right? But there was two things. Number one, I wanted to be famous, right?
Oh,
As kind of like weird and kind of like typical as that sounds, like I did want to be famous, right? And then the second thing was when I started speaking to potential clients, right? They turn around and go, wow. And at that point, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, they want to work with me, they want to hire me. But instead, Christina, they went, wow, you're like the world's best kept secret. My face dropped. I'm like, wait, hold on. I'm not trying to build a business to be a secret, right? Right? I want to be known everywhere. I want to be famous. Like, what's going on here? And then it was during lockdown, right? When
okay.
I was like, okay, something's got to change here. But at that point, nothing was happening. Everything was on lockdown. Everything was shut. And I was like, okay, I've got to do something. I can't just go silent, right? And then I was like, okay, let me try this whole podcast and malarkey myself, right? People are talking about it. I'm hearing it. Like, let me see how this goes. And so I decided, okay, let me try and guest on podcasts first, right? And see how that goes. And in the beginning, nobody would have me on their show. I wouldn't even get a no. Like, I just wouldn't get no responses at all. It was tumbleweed,
Oh,
right? And I'm like, well, what's going on here? Because I know people are getting on podcasts. Why can't I get on anything? And then I kind of tweaked and strategized for about 2 to 3 months. And then I got booked on 100 podcasts in 60 days,
wow.
right? Which was completely possible then because we were all stuck at home doing nothing anyway, right? So I was quite happy going on one podcast and another and another and another, right? It was pretty easy. But then the podcasters were turning around and saying to me, what's the name of your podcast? And I'm like, damn it, I don't have one. Okay, let me go create one. Right? I managed to create a podcast in 14 days. Right? And at that point, people were like, hold on a second, you're everywhere. What's going on? Like, we see you on these different podcasts. Now you have your own podcast. You did it in 14 days. Like, how are you doing this? And that point, I was like, oh, people need to know how to do this and be educated on it. And that's where the podcast agency came from, the Make Your Mark agency. Right. So that's what happened there. Now all of a sudden I'm everywhere. And I'm like loving it because I'm like, yes, fame.
Now, see, you're talking to a California girl that, Hollywood and all that stuff. So, wanting to be famous, I totally get that dream. The
Mm,
difference is, in a lot of people, is you made it happen. I mean, you might want to say, well, I'm not famous, but you are, because girl, you are everywhere. Even today, I see you everywhere. And I love it because one of the best things is you don't let an obstacle stop you. I mean, since we've met and we've been friends for over a year now, and we're secretly in each other's business, kind of poking around in things, you don't let something stop you. And what you just talked about was tribute to that. You wanted something, you went after it. This happened, you got no's, you didn't give up. You
yeah.
didn't give up, and that's not typical. And you didn't look at it as a negative, you looked at it as a challenge that you then jumped through. And starting your own podcast in 14 days, when you're talking about that, are you talking about idea and the whole concept and design and recording one episode, or, like how much did you do in 14 days?
Right. I'm not saying that it was a perfect podcast. Not at all, right? I was literally winging it. And it was not until time that as time went past, I started making tweaks and changes and how it should work and things that I shouldn't have been doing and all of this. And so I got it out there in 14 days, just like it was just like bing bang bosh kind of thing. Just put something out there. Didn't even have my face on there. My branding was completely different. The name was different. Like everything was completely different, right? And so I must have recorded something like 3 or 4 episodes and I just put it out there. And I was like, let's just see how this goes. And I'll just work the rest of it out, right? And so as I put things out there, I was like, ooh, this person noticed and this person noticed and oh, now this person's asking me about it. I was like, okay, let's just keep going. And in
Mm-hmm.
the beginning I was just doing guest episodes. I was just asking people to come on my show. Let's do an interview like we are doing right now. And I found that easier because at that point I didn't really have any products or anything to sell, right? I just started this like company and I was like, okay, let's go with it, right? Let's get this podcast out. And then people start asking me, how can you do this for us? And that's where the agency kind of came from, because I started doing it myself and then people were asking me how I did it.
Right.
Right. And then I had things to sell after that. But at that point, it was just about networking and bringing other guests on and building my network and meeting good people all over the world. Right. And that's, in fact, how I've built my network, built my email list, right? And also made like loads of friendships and relationships where people are now partnering with me, JVing, collaborations, affiliates, because I did that on my podcast, first of all.
And that's important. One of the things that I'm a true advocate for is don't wait for it to be perfect, because it will never be perfect. I mean, it's like people saying, I'm waiting to have children until I can afford it. You never will be able to afford it. I promise you. I promise you. Starting over with a 4-year-old who is like already eating like she's a 13-year-old, you'll never be able to afford it. But it's that fear, and going back to you not letting it stop you. Let me put it out there because I can always make it better. But you're taking in the learning curve, you're taking in the touching. I encourage people when they're working with me, touch it, push the button. You won't break the program. You may not love it, but you can change it the next time. It's okay if you sent an email and you forgot to put their name in it, or whatever it is. Just don't let it stop you. And I totally commend you for not waiting for it to be perfect. And I value that in, you get people to take action, and you walked that walk yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a journey. Let me put it that way. It was a journey. And my episodes in the beginning, like I was an awful host. When I say an awful host, right, to the point where I thought all I had to do was smile. And it was a creepy smile. That's all I did while the guest spoke, right? And I was like, I've gone back looking at them like, oh my God, this is so creepy and it's so robotic, right? But the funny thing is, those old videos where I'm like terrible have got me clients today. You know why? Because people don't care about, or people have said to me, I don't care about your recent videos, right? I've seen you on stage, I've seen you talk. He goes, I wanted to see the episodes you did years ago when you first started out. So they go and check that out, and they come back to me, they're like, you are awful. I was like, thank you very much. Right? But they're like, but now look at you. Now you're speaking on stages and now you're doing all of this. So they've turned around and goes, I know you're the coach I need to be working with because I've seen your journey. Right?
Right.
You don't need to be perfect. If it is awful, it's going to work for you in the future because people are going to see that and they're going to see how far you've come.
As long as you look back and you can objectively look at it, and you can go, oh, I want to do this different. I want to do that. As long as you don't put it in the can and go, done with that one, do another one, done with that one, and turn around and walk away, and you don't take that opportunity, or you don't look at it and go, oh my gosh, that was awful, I'm never doing another one. Like those are that's the spectrums. You need to be able to work in the middle and go, oh, I can so make this better. I mean, think about when you're cooking at home. You started with a recipe and you may follow that recipe, but it's kind of sterile. You know, you're a seasonaholic, you like to season things, but you try it and then you add something and you add something and you add something and you make it yours. What you do in your business, in your marketing and in your podcast, and think of it that way as well. It's yours. You're going to always be tinkering and making it better. And you are your worst critic, but you also have to be your best champion.
Yes,
your
absolutely.
biggest cheerleader. Let me ask you a question. You work with a lot of podcasters, starting out, have been doing it for a while, and what I would consider expert podcasters. Like, you've worked with the gamut and you still work with them. Can you name maybe a couple common mistakes that beginning and maybe, kind of at it like myself might be making that could just help them out a little bit?
Yeah, so when people are first starting out, they feel like they need to edit all the R's, the ums, the oohs, the ahs, right? And all of this. And I'm like, no, right? That's what makes you human. You don't need to edit all that stuff out. It might be just something that's happening in the background, a noise. It might even just be the pauses, right? Because when people are first starting out, they do get nervous, right? You might need to take a couple of seconds and start again, and that's fine. You can edit those out. But do not go around editing all the R's and M's and all of that, because the editing is going to be such a huge task if that's what you're going to be doing, right? So keep them in there. It's a human touch. That's how we speak all day, every day. So don't worry about the ums and the R's. And then I guess the next level of people, right, would be talking about things like, okay, like if I'm going to be doing solo episodes, guest episodes, what should I be asking them, right? Like what the differences are, and things like setting up the forms for the guests. What questions should I ask on the forms, right? When should I send them? How do you guess, put the systems all together? How do you do automations? Right? Because you don't want to start doing things or carry on doing things as you're scaling manually. So you want to start automating all the different systems to make it so much easier. So we go into that aspect of it. And then I actually do some consulting for 7-figure businesses, right? Companies, where they don't necessarily need me on my team, right? Because they already have a team that can do the editing, that can do the graphics, that can do all these things, but they just don't know how and what, right? So then they bring me in to consult with their team to say, right, we need to do this. This is how we're going to do it. These are the systems we can use to integrate, to make it all automated, to make it easier. So it's the consult that they get from me when it comes to the 7 figures as to how the strategy is put together.
Got it. So, and again, we're in total agreement on the editing part. A lot of the podcasts that I love, and even one of my clients I love, is he's authentic, and when I set out to do my podcast years ago, my point was I was going to be authentic. It is me. When I was living in California, at any given time, there could be a child be walking in or somebody texting, where's dinner? Or, it just was what it was. I mean, I was a virtual assistant. I was strategies for small businesses, but I also was a mom. And so, and that was who I am. Moving to Texas, you will hear a rooster crowing right outside my window, or when I'm doing the Facebook Live I did, thanks to you, I had the mule walked up on me because she thought I had carrots at the same time. I mean, I wanted to be outside. So I just thought, you know what, this is my life and this is who I am. And I can't edit those things out or be upset that they're happening. And it is who we are, going back to you being the very beginning. that was authentically who you are, and it was part of your journey, and people are attracted to you. When you start looking at the people that are midway and the mistakes they're making it harder on themselves, you know. And then when you get into the seven figures, like the beginning, people starting out need to realize that just because they're seven figure, you know, income earners or companies and all of these that are out there that we see their ads in Facebook and have these huge thousands of people events, doesn't mean they know everything and they have it all right. They
Right.
still bring in people. So never knock yourself as a business owner. You know, we all are our own independent paths in our journeys, and that's what attracts
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And the thing is,
So
I love that when like you've got all these animals coming up behind you and you're doing video. Like that isn't a mistake, it's actually a blessing in disguise because people get to know who you are even more, right? Like what your world is about. These animals that you're the one that lives on a farm. Not many people live on a farm, right? Not, I'm come from London, right? I'm a city girl all over, right? And when you told me about all these animals, I'm like, oh my goodness, she's got a whole farm in her yard, right? Like, it's amazing. It's pretty cool.
I
And
it,
you know,
it
people love that. People would like to see the real you and what's going on in your world.
yeah, and I love that, and you know, I appreciate all of my clients and all of my cohorts that support that, you know. And you know, I am glad that you support that in all of the people that you work with and you consult with, and when they're starting their podcasts, you are working to set their confidence level in who they are and in their business, and for them not to compare themselves. I mean, you are such a great advocate, and then strong to boot. Like you're not going to let them sneak out on different things because of their fear. You encourage them. So I love that about you, and about your podcast education, because you're really pushing people to get out there and be heard and seen.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
one of the things that you talked about was getting booked on other people's podcasts
Yeah.
and the importance of that. Now, we both know from a marketing standpoint, visibility is everything,
Yes.
you know. And again, for you right now, you are everywhere, no matter what platform I'm going to. I'm seeing Kay doing something, um, podcast, a question, your Facebook group, encouraging them, doing a Facebook Live. You're over in this group doing something and posting. I mean, I'm getting all these notifications, and it it is truly just you. I mean, you don't have a clone of you. You don't have a twin sister. Your brother would be very upset if I said he was trying to be you. But you know, you're doing it, and you just have this plan, and you work your plan. And
Mhm.
part of that plan was being a guest on other people's podcasts as you opened up. You know, that's how you wanted to start. So do you have a couple tips, just two good tips that we could give them about being a guest on somebody's, or approaching being a guest on somebody else's podcast?
Mhm. Yes. Oh my God, I've got loads of tips here, right? Okay. So first of all, you got to be clear as to who your ideal audience is, right? Who you want to speak to. Once you've got that on point, then you got to get clear as to which podcast you want to be a guest on and understand who their audience is, okay? Because if it's complete opposite to who you want to be speaking with, then that is not going to be the right podcast for you. No matter how awesome this podcast is, if they don't have your audience, then there's no point in speaking to them because you might as well be speaking to an empty room. Okay. So
True.
you got to do your research as to who their audience are. And then before you even approach them, there's a couple of steps. If there is a podcast that's a perfect fit for you, they have your audience, you should go and listen to 2 to 3 of their episodes. Okay, always listen to their episodes. Because if you don't, the podcast will probably ask you, oh, have you listened to my episode? Or what was the last episode you listened to? Right, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh damn, I haven't listened to any of them. Then why should they have you on their show? Right? And so you want to listen to a couple of them, and write down a couple of takeaways from the episodes that you've actually listened to, right? And don't get upset if you have come across somebody that's talking about a very similar topic that you wanted to go speak about on the show itself, right? In fact, that's a good thing, because then you know this is the right podcast for you to be on. Okay, if someone's already speaking about it. But what I want you to do at this point is listen to the episode of what they're saying, and then see if you can bring a different perspective to it, right? A little twist. And then what you do is you reach out to the podcast host and let them know, oh, I've listened to episode 56 with Joe Blogs, who talks about X, Y, and Z, but I would love to bring a different perspective to your audience about A, B, and C, right? This is going to intrigue the host, because they're like, first of all, this person's listened to it. Right? I know, because they told me which episode, they told me the name of the guest, and they've given me the key points and want to bring a different perspective, right? So they're going to now give you a time of day. So then you reach out and you give them all this information, but there's one last thing that you do. Once you have listened to the episode, go and give that podcast a review, a 5-star review, right? Before you submit, take a screenshot, and then also attach that screenshot to the email or the message that you send them. Let them know, oh, by the way, I've also left your podcast a review. Right? It's going to be really hard for them to say no once you've done all of that.
That's some really good, that's great information. And I love, first, I'm not sure if anybody caught it, the X, Y, and Z. Okay. I know they always say X, Y, and Z. It sounds much more eloquent from her. But I agree with that, because I love to do my research on things as well, especially if I'm going to talk to a group live. I'll see who they're, like if it's a networking group, I'll go find the people that are part of it, the chamber. And that way when I'm talking, I can call out people that are there. It's a little harder on the podcast, but doing that with the host is an amazing idea, because you're right. It does reinforce all of that. That's a great tip. And I mean, it obviously works because you've done it. Now, I do know that you have an amazing download and opt-in opportunity to get these tips for getting on booked as a guest and everything. So is it okay if I include that in my article down below as well?
Absolutely, yeah. There is a freebie I've given, where if they want to get booked on podcast, and if they want to know at least the foundations of building a podcast as well.
Okay.
So you can give them both there. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Perfect. I'll put that in. Now, I did hear a little bit of a buzz from your offices about your upcoming challenge. I know we're doing one. Ours is business-based and more organizational and like a business plan based, but yours is super exciting sounding, because it's centered around podcasting.
Yes.
And that's going to really help people move forward and get strength. So can you tell us a little bit about your challenge that's coming up?
Yes. So it's a 4-day challenge, and it's to get you launching your video podcast, right? Not just audio, a video podcast. Because Christina, you already said you see me everywhere on every platform, right? It's because we do video and we get very smart and we repurpose the same content over and over again on different platforms in different ways. So you can be visible everywhere, but we're working smarter, not harder now, right?
See?
So you have one content, but it's going to be spread all over on different platforms, so you are seen everywhere, right? This is why I find it important to do video podcasting. And a lot of people are like shying away, like, no, I can't be on camera, right? And all this, oh no, faceless content and all of that. But the thing is, when you're building a business, you are the face of your brand, right? You've got to put your face out there. People buy into the people before they buy into your products and services, right? You've got to build that know, like, and trust
Mm-hmm.
before they all throw their cards at you. And the quickest way and the easiest way that I have found is by creating a video podcast and then learning how to repurpose that content. And this is what we're going to be teaching in our 4-day challenge. Okay. And it's going to be very, very simple, because once you know how to do it, right? You've got the education, you've got the information, you can go ahead and just run with it. And we're going to give you all the information you need from the setup, right, to building your confidence and having your face on screen, because that's going to be one of the biggest things that people are going to be kind of like having a block and fear of, right? But
Right.
there's a very easy way of getting over that, right? And I've seen it happen in front of me in seconds. Okay. Yes, right. And so, but you got to be willing to put the work in, but it can just change things just like that. And yeah, so it's going to be really packed full of like information on video podcasting, not only how to get your podcast out, but also how to build that confidence within yourself so you can feel confident when you're in front of the camera as well.
So, question on that.
Oh,
Now, myself, I do the video podcasting, as you see,
yeah.
and I repurpose. So I do some of that. Or there will be people that are listening that already have a podcast in place. Um, is this challenge still good for them and myself to be a part of?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because so it's not just for people that have started a podcast already, or already do video podcasts, or just do audio podcasts. There's going to be things in there for you to be able to develop, because one of the things that I love to do is identify where the gaps are, right? And we're going to go through that because there's certain gaps that people are missing constantly. Okay. And one of them's already mentioned already, right? Is knowing who your audience is. A lot of people like to start a podcast and put it out there and think, oh, I'm going to be just speaking to everybody and anybody. Well, no, that's not the case, right? We really got to understand who they are, right? So we can then create the right content that speaks to them. Okay.
Right.
And so it's going to be identifying where the gaps are, where you can make the tweaks, where you can make the changes, because yeah, you can have a great podcast, but you only know what you know. What about the stuff that you don't know? Right. And so you're going to be learning from all of that as well.
I think that's awesome because, again, in business, we tell you the one-page business plan, and
Mm-hmm.
in that is your client avatar. So everything kind of molds together, and that carries through in all the different aspects that you take through your business. And podcasting is huge, and it helps you get everywhere. Like you mentioned, you're in the UK,
Yeah.
I'm in the States, and yet we can be on a call at 6 o'clock in the morning, my time, and we're doing stuff. And now it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're doing stuff. You have managed to have this life that can work with people all over the world. And not a lot of people do that. A lot of people, they stick to their time frames, right? And you're a testament to being there for people all over the world. I will say that because you do work with people all over the world.
Right.
Another thing about the podcasting and the video podcasting that you brought up that I agree with, and I love that you said it, is that you are the face of your company.
Mm-hmm.
And with the way the world has become, especially after lockdown,
Yeah.
lockdown kind of forced it. More and more people are running their businesses and companies from their home or their home office.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important because you're not sitting at an office space where somebody can walk in, or even boutiques. Like there's a lot of boutiques or small businesses that are here that you walk in and they're like, okay, well, that customer can walk into your door and shake your hand and talk to you and be there.
Right.
But what about the person that you're selling to online on your website that doesn't have the opportunity to meet you face to face? You
Yeah.
would benefit from this, even though you feel like you're just a small little boutique in a little tiny town in Texas of 2,000 people. If you can ship it, you need to be visible there as well. So I love
Absolutely.
the fact that you're enforcing that.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I've done some research on this as well,
okay,
right? Because I've gone off on social media And I've had a look at people like Bill Gates, right?
Okay.
Like Bill Gates and his product, Microsoft. And when I've gone to see Bill Gates' page, right, he has got like, I can't even remember the exact number, but just say like 100 million followers just following him, right? But then when I went to a Microsoft page to see how many people are following that, it was dramatically lower. It was like just a million, right? And I'm like, that just proves to me people are buying into his product because they're bought into him. More people
Hmm.
buy into the person than into the service or the product, right? That's secondary. So, and then I did that with a few people that we have come to know and love, right? And I'm like, every time it's the same pattern. There's more followers on the person's page rather than the product page. And I'm like,
Right.
right, this is it. This is why we need to have our faces out. Then people need to know who they are.
And even like yourself, I mean, we want to watch other people because we want to, sadly to say, a lot of people are watching other people, and especially the higher people like a Bill Gates or whatever, to find out what they do wrong so that they can have something to talk about. And it's like, come on now. It's not that, but they want to be able to go, oh, I'm better than that. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't buy that for my 16-year-old. I would make them earn it, whatever that is. But think about it. If we can stop and make a change to where everybody is looking at other people for the positives. I mean, look at your journey. You know,
Mm.
people were watching you, and there could have been bad things to be said, but they're watching you to go, oh, I could be like her when I grow up, and that's like one of my favorite things I'll say. It's like, oh, can I be you when I grow up? Because you've conquered something that I still harbor. I hold a fear for a certain thing or whatever. And you, being you, is just like, no, in fact, what was it the other day? Okay, Christina, let's have this great chat. Go grab your phone, pick it up, push live on the button. I'm like, what? I had not done a Facebook Live before. So you had me do my first one to give me over. And you're in the UK. I could have hit end this call. I could have hung up on you. But this has become such a valuable way to communicate. It would be like walking out on you if I was at a coffee shop,
Right.
sitting here in this conversation to us now that we've had lockdown and we've had all of that is just as real as sitting at a Starbucks at a table. And you have that same respect. So I couldn't hang up on you.
But you know
But
what, Christina? It didn't come easy to me right from the beginning, right? Doing these Facebook Lives, doing videos and putting yourself out there. And I struggled with some of the things that most people are struggling with, right? And it was like, oh my goodness, like I need to make sure my hair and my makeup is on perfect. Oh my God, I got to wear the right top. I got to make sure this is all good and I got to say the right words. And it was all these things, right? And thinking, oh, I'm going to be judged and what people are going to think of me if I get something wrong or say something wrong or don't look like the right person to be on camera. All these things, right? And then as I did more and more of them, right, it's funny because your confidence level still goes up, right? Because you're doing more and more of them. But at the same time, the excuses, the kind of thinking about all what people are going to say about you, all the judgments start disappearing more and more and more, right? To the point where I can now confidently go on camera, do a live without any makeup on my face, right?
see,
And people have said to me, how do you do that? Like, I get that question all the time. How are you doing a live, like straight out from coming to the gym, all
yep,
sweaty, no makeup, my hair's everywhere? I'm like, because I don't care about what I look like. What worries me, what I care about the most is the value and the content I'm giving to everybody else,
true.
right? And that's when you know that your confidence all of a sudden has switched gears and has gone up this way because you stop caring about all those other things.
And when you're doing your podcast or you're doing your Facebook Lives and you're doing anything in a group setting, your goal is building that safe community. But
Yeah.
it's not, you're always talking about the people who are coming to you in a Facebook group or whatever, that, this is a safe place. We're going to share ideas, make sure you ask questions. It's okay. If you don't act accordingly and you're guarded, you're not giving them that safe space, because they're like, they can feel that tension in you. This kind of communication brings authenticity. It really does. I mean,
And that's what people want, is refreshing. I like to put posts on there that gets a bit controversial, just because, right? Yeah, I'd like to ruffle some feathers, right? But I also want to hear about people's opinions on certain things, right? A lot of things that people, I guess, don't want to talk about, or not saying anything and hiding from. And I'm like, no, let's get this out the forefront, and let's actually talk and have a discussion and see where people are at here. Right, because until I get their opinions and their suggestions, that I know what type of content to now produce.
right.
Right?
I am always saying, we as marketers, we turn around, and if we don't ask our audience what they need, we're making it up.
Yeah.
And I would rather be filling the need than just creating pomp and circumstance, just doing something. And you have I mean, I've seen a couple of the posts that you did, and you asked about, why do a video podcast? I can't remember the exact words. And, I piped in and said something.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't even think about you leading to that. And anything I said, you already know and you do. And it was interesting reading, like you said, what
Yeah.
other people's things were. And it was like, nice. Okay, I got it. Like that one gal, well, I only listen to podcasts in the car. It's like, okay, but you're not everybody,
Right.
you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And going back to the formula of hitting all the different modalities, she would still be accommodated to in your plan,
Exactly.
you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but you're stopping these other ones. Or somebody was like, well, my guests have fear of being on camera. And it's like, okay, well, your team or yourself could do something really beautiful in Canva. They could
Yeah.
talk behind that, whatever it is. But, you know, you're going to have great advice for them on how to handle situations like that. That,
Absolutely.
I mean, people do have fear of being in front of camera. But if you're the host of the podcast and that's what you do, you can find ways to accommodate them. You're going to give suggestions and even start easing hosts that are scared of camera, like you said, into being okay to do that.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you got to be wanting to get past this fear, right? Because it is just fear. It's a fear. It's just a story that's made up in our head, right? Nothing bad is going to happen. We're not going to die, right? It's going to be okay. And so it's getting past all the negativity, I guess, the trauma that's built up all those stories, and just realize, oh, why didn't I do this ages ago? Like, is this it? Because that's
Right.
exactly how I felt. I'm like, what's stopping me? I don't understand now, right? Because I love doing the lives and the stories, and like people are gonna have to stop, like tell me to get off the phone and stop doing it because I love doing it so much, right? Right? It
I'm su-
becomes fun.
I'm surprised the kids in the park that were playing each day when you were coming out of work from the gym and you were walking through the park weren't finally going, hey, recognizing that you were going through, going, look, they're all playing, and be regulars for you.
Do you know what's so funny, right? What people don't see, what happens in the back of the scenes, right? Is that I'll be walking down. I'm like, okay, I'm like planning. All right, I'm gonna walk down this path. That's gonna be enough time to do this video, right? And then I'm like, oh no, 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 I've got to do that again. And I walk back all the way back to the tree, and then do it again. And I've got all these people watching me like, what is she doing? Why does she keep going back and doing? Right, and I've got this camera in front of me, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what they're saying behind my back. What is going on? But I don't care. Right, I'm like, I've got to get this content out. Right, so I don't care. I'm going to get the content out. Oh, okay, I made a mistake. I still make mistakes, especially when you do lives, right? When you're
right?
pre-recording, it's completely different. But when you do lives, like you want to make sure that you're saying the right things, coming across the right way. And sometimes I'm like, oh no, 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 that came across really negative. Okay, let's reword that. Let's do that again, right? And so I'm not afraid anymore to be in public doing that and recording these videos, right? I'm still waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder and be like, what are you doing? What's going on? Why do you keep walking up and down? But no one's done that quite yet. So we'll
See?
see.
And it's funny because the getting past the concern of what other people are saying or thinking is super important. And
Yes.
it's funny because you might walk the path back and forth, but when my kids were growing up, which my oldest is in her 30s, we won't talk about it. Um, when they were little, and we'd go through the grocery store, if a good song broke out on the thing, mom was dancing in the freezer aisle, and they're like, oh my gosh, you know. So and my husband says the same thing. He's like, oh, I can't do that. What are you doing? It's like, if nobody can understand and go, oh my gosh, she's having way too much fun, and get a smile on their face and move on, then that's kind of sad, you know. It's really looking at people and just cheering them on for the things that they're doing. You know, I've walked up to people at stores and complimented on their clothes, or oh my
Right.
gosh, I can't believe you just picked up those three things that fell when that person went by. Can I help you get these? You know, they didn't even knock them over. But
Right.
just, you know, stopping somebody at the store that is loading their car. It's like, hey, can I help you put that in there? And not worried that they're going to get offended that I'm asking if they need help, you know. And finding that it's really getting out of our own heads. And I love that you advocate for it, but you also walk that and you do it. And you know, I always say, like, being back east and being in Europe, because I'd been
Mm.
there a little bit, man, it's straight in your face. Like, they don't mince words and say, oh, I don't want to hurt her feelings. They'll just tell you. And
It's very
you know,
true.
and you have to be ready for it. So it is a surprise it hasn't happened to you yet.
Or they're probably like, oh my goodness, no, she's doing that on camera. Right, what's she gonna do off camera? I better not go near her.
That's funny. Well, I'm looking forward to your challenge coming up, and I wish you great success. I'm already registered, you know, I'm going to be a part of it. And I'm going to include the link below on the challenge. And we're going to do the podcast guest download as well.
Yeah.
And those will connect with them. Also, if it's okay, can I put your Facebook group in there? Because if you're open for invitations to that, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if people want to learn, get more tips, I give daily trainings Monday to Friday and different things, answer people's questions. Yeah. So yeah, please feel free to put the link in there for the Facebook group.
That's a good, safe way to start if people aren't ready to like jump in and all of that, and then be connected to you because you'll be sharing with them other opportunities they have. Like, you'll be talking about the challenge and all of that, and then get to know more about it.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So tell us your company name one more time.
So my name is Kay Suthar. I'm CEO and founder of Make Your Mark podcast agency.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being a guest, and I look forward to being in the challenge and avoiding you when I need to do a Facebook Live. And no, I'm kidding. But I really value you and everything you've brought into my life and your friendship. And I just think you are so amazing in your expertise and your podcasting and your coaching.
Oh my goodness, right back at you because I wouldn't have been able to do some of the tech, any of the tech that's taken to put this challenge together without you. So thank you so much for your support and thank you for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.